Thank you, John. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming out, and to Steve Wright and to Chris Carnes and the Rhode Island Voter Coalition, thank you very much for putting real people in the seats in front of real candidates so we here in Rhode Island can really make a decision. And this is a decision that's going to be critical to us. My name's Mark Zaccaria. In 2008, I was the Republican candidate for Congress of the 2nd District. I mean to be the Republican candidate again in 2010. And the reason that I am running is because the America that I grew up in is slipping through our fingers. I will not allow it to slip away from us if there's anything I can do about it. And I charge each of you to make a commitment to do the same thing with who you support, and especially with your vote in 2010. The spending measures that have greatly increased in the first year of the new administration are threatening the financial foundations of the Republic. If your money is worth nothing, it does not matter how much of it you have. And we are facing that. So we are in a situation where, despite the party tag, yes, I'm a Republican, look past that, there are only two things we can do in the federal government right now. We can make it bigger, which is what's been going on, or we can come to our senses and make it smaller. And that's what we have to do. Now, I'm asking to be your representative on a committee of 435. And you might say, well, what can one freshman congressman do? I'll tell you what I can do. I can make some noise on your behalf. I can let the people down there know that the people of the 2nd District of Rhode Island, hey, say enough already, and we need to cut spending. Now that's going to be painful, and we're all going to have to sustain that pain. But if we don't, the pain that our children or grandchildren are going to have to sustain is going to be that much worse. And so John just said we have a $12 trillion headache. We now need to take a $12 trillion aspirin. And if we don't, it'll be a $20 trillion aspirin, which is going to be even harder to choke down. So the sooner we culturally come to our senses and say that free Americans govern themselves, we will not become indentured servants to a government that has to take everything away from us to just try and pay the debt that it's racked up in our name, and we start taking back our government, the better off we and our children will be, and we'll be back to that America that you and I did both grow up in. My name's Mark Zaccaria. I'm running for Congress to do that job on your behalf. Please keep me in mind in November. Thank you. Hello, thank you very much. It does my heart good to see people who are really paying attention and looking at what they see and saying, wait a minute, this is all wrong. I'll tell you how to make a real stimulus. Forget all this stuff that's coming out of Washington. A real stimulus comes when we get the government out of the way and let productive people here in America do what they do best, which is create wealth using their own hands. That's how you create wealth. By sticking that giant vacuum cleaner hose from Washington deeper and deeper into all of our pockets, it is taking away the very freedom we have, not just to pursue happiness, but to pursue commerce. And we need to keep that money in the people's hands. The single reason why it's important to have smaller government is because it costs less. And since it costs less, you get to keep more of your money. And you know what to do with your money, or what you want done with your money, better than anybody else does, and certainly better than any government bureaucracy. So what we have to do is confine the government to the role that it was first intended to take. And I hate to say, you know, it's as simple as defending the shores and delivering the mail. It really doesn't even have to deliver the mail anymore. But what we have is what I like to call an operator's guide for the United States government. It's the Constitution of the United States. Read it sometime. You'll be amazed. What it does is it protects you from your government. And I suggest that today, more than you have in recent years, you need protection from your government, and I'm offering to do it for you. Please remember me on November 4th. Thanks. Yeah, I think that, well, first of all, I served 5 years in active duty in the United States Air Force towards the tail end of the Vietnam War. It was a decision that I made in college, thinking that, you know, the idea of, like, dodging, going to Canada, unacceptable to me. Part of service. Everybody, as you know, who joins the military and serves on a military base does so because at least some component of them makes them want to serve their nation. Now that's great, but the forced protection that the military has to provide to those troops to do their jobs has been shown recently to be failing miserably. I mean, look at Fort Hood. And the fact of the matter is that we not only have military bases in the United States that, frankly have, you know, you could raise a security question about any of them, but we have military bases in like 130 plus other countries all around the world. And the question that I would, your question was, what can I do as a freshman congressman to go and make that better? What I can do is go back to the basics of what the military is supposed to do. It is a defense force. It is not the world's police force. We should not have military personnel stationed in 140 nations all around the world. When we start cutting that down, what we'll see is it costs us less. Not only will that make government smaller and benefit us all that way, but it will allow for greater budgetary application within the military to that force protection, which is so important. And it's not just building big walls around the military, as you know. It's all sorts of administrative processes inside that would have picked up somebody like the gentleman at Fort Hood who got way off the reservation before anybody noticed. Sue, I'm asking you to hire me to be a political leader. The first role of leadership is to define the problem. So the first thing, your question was, how do we wean people off of all of this stuff?
Social Security has got to be gone in the next 1 or 2 generations, or it's going to bankrupt the country. And the same thing with these other entitlement programs. Where's the federal government get off paying for our retirement? That's nuts.
Well, the fact of the matter is, if 50 or 60% of the voters thought like you did, we wouldn't have this problem. Most people are asleep, and it requires us, me, others in the Congress, to say, folks, here's this problem, and it's about to jump out of the closet and bite us big time. And then, once we've defined it, we then have to say, here's what we will do about it. There has to be some kind of privatization of the Social Security, just like there has to be some kind of a privatization of the pension system in Rhode Island, because neither one of them is sustainable. And if we don't do something about it, third rail or not, then someday the checks are going to start to bounce. And it's not going to be that far in the future. So as a person who aspires to political leadership, I say let's do something about it right now. And what I would do first is make sure that everybody understood that there were all these things that were unfunded. And then say, look, here's how we will either take the expenditures down, which we have to do because there won't be money there for them, and here's how we will back it up with some other program. I mean, you know, Social Security is ultimately going to be something like a 401k. And the sooner we start that process, the sooner we'll get through the pain of it, and the sooner we'll finish. That's what leadership is about. Your first question was, what about bad laws? Well, get rid of them. We got plenty of laws. If we could wheel the combined federal regulations into this room, we'd all have to move, get out of the way. There'd be that much paper. So, you know, I would consider having an entire session of Congress devoted to retiring laws rather than making any new ones. Who thinks we need more laws?